Hi, thanks for tuning in. This video that I'm about to do is a video that I'm going to do to break down the parts that I use for building my AR-45, as well as help you decide if you want to do it and what parts you should probably get. I'm also going to be talking about some of the problems I had and how I fixed those problems. And ever since I fixed those problems, this gun has been running 100%. So I'm going to be putting a Law tactical folding adapter on it, and I figured this would be a good time to break it down and do this video and let you all know if you're thinking about building on what you should probably consider. So stay tuned, and I'm going to break her down. Alright, so now that we have it broken apart, let's start with the lower receiver and the parts that I have inside of it. So all the parts that I have inside of that are from PSA. I bought the PSA parts kit with this SB Tactical brace because it was part of like the cheapest that I could find online. And I ended up upgrading the pins to steel pins for the simple fact that you hear, I don't know, maybe you don't, but a lot of people had their pins breaking on them from AR-9s and AR-45. So I ended up upgrading that before I ever even put the gun together with steel pins. The hammer, I upgraded the hammer spring with a Wolf extra power hammer spring. Reason for that is actually I put a Wolf extra power hammer spring in all my AR-15s for the fact that it's harder hitting and it will set off a lot of the steel case primers a lot better. And not only that, with the AR-45 being a blowback operated, it helps also reduce that speed of the bolt coming back so fast and causing the hammer to slap the trigger. So that's why I upgraded the spring on that, and it helps reduce that trigger slap, helps reduce the bolt speed coming back on it. When I went with the bolt, I went with a 10 ounce. The original the original buffer that I wanted was a 12 ounce. And I didn't buy a 12 ounce because they were a lot more expensive than I wanted to pay for them. So I ended up just going with a 10 ounce buffer and a extra power buffer spring. I also took this buffer spring and I stretched it out a little bit, so I wish I had another buffer spring to kind of compare it to the size, but I stretched it out maybe about 3.5 inches or so past what a normal buffer spring would be. And the reason I did that is because I shoot suppressed a lot and I was getting a lot of port pop from it. And when I stretched it out to do that, it helped literally reduce that port pop to like almost nothing. It also helps reduce that bolt speed coming back as well. Now back to the buffer, which I forgot to mention, is so you see how thick this is? If I could have my other buffer, I could compare the size, but this is a little thicker than a standard AR buffer at the head anyways. And you want to look at getting something that's this thick, or making sure that you get a spacer or put some quarters behind inside of your buffer tube, because otherwise, if you don't do that, this bolt is shorter than a standard AR bolt, and the space that it takes up when it's coming back is a lot farther than what it would usually be on an AR-15. So in turn, like if you have a last round bolt hold open and your bolt comes way back here, you hear a lot of people having their bolt catch break. It's because the bolt's coming way back here and then smashing into this bolt release and breaking it. If you have a thicker buffer or the actual spacer behind it, it helps reduce that space behind it, and when it comes back, it doesn't come back so far to get enough speed to come up and break it. So I recommend, if you're going to do that and you have a last round bolt hold open, to think about getting a buffer that's thick, as well as or getting a spacer that goes in the back of it. The bolt I chose because it was a full bolt. You see a lot of them, they have the weight on the back of it, and so it's kind of like a two-piece bolt. I didn't like that. Two reasons I didn't like that. I don't like having the separate separation in the bolt, and another reason is because I couldn't put a Law Tactical folding stock on there, or folding adapter on there. So with this, I can take this weight that's inside of here out and replace it with the Law Tactical parts and have it running that way. So that's just the reasons why I chose this. Now, when I chose this, it gave me a lot of problems, and I originally thought it was the barrel that was giving me the problems. But right here on this little lip, it was protruding a lot more than that. Like it came out like maybe another, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so. But it would cause the bullet to get lodged up inside of the barrel, and me trying to figure out what was wrong with it, I thought it was the barrel. So I did a lot of work on one of the barrels I had and destroyed it, trying to make the barrel work for the bolt. And it turns out that it was the bolt face, this little lip right here, that caused it to jam up, because the bullet wasn't able to slide in between the extractor and the bolt face. It would literally hit face on and just kind of stop. So once I filed that down, it's able to slide up underneath of it like it's supposed to in kind of like your 1911 styles or your Glocks or semi-auto pistols. It slides up underneath of it and locks it in place as it's chambering. Well, this little lip here was preventing that. So I had to file that down, as well as take off a little of the edge so it wouldn't destroy my magazine after filing it down. But once I did that, it started running, and it's been running ever since. And I'm very happy with it. But think about that if you're going to get the FM-45 bolt with that little lip and yours isn't running, or it doesn't run once you build it, consider this right here being your problem, and just take a close look at that. So the upper was from a website. It's kind of like a Franken-build upper. No parts are from one company. The barrel's from KAK, and the upper receiver I wanted to say was Anderson. I'm not even sure where the rail's from, but I would have chosen a 10-inch barrel, but they only had the 8, and I'm not crying about that. This thing is awesome. This little funny thing that you see on the front of it, that's for my suppressor, and I'll be running that as well when I do the end of this video. But if you have any questions about the parts that I went into or put into it, please feel free to ask me. I'm going to throw this back together and give a quick overview of what it looks like, and then I'm going to try to take it out to the range and go shooting with it. So throw your comments in below. If you have any concerns or questions, please ask. Before I put it back together, I just wanted to show what the weight on the inside of the buffer looked like before I threw it back together, and comparison to the Law Tactical adapter piece. They weigh about the same, so that was another thing I was kind of thinking about, but I'm not too concerned about the weight difference in it. I'm not losing too many ounces switching these two out, so therefore my bolt's still going to run about the same weight. And that was another thing I was considering when building this ahead of time. Alright, quick look of it being back together. Charge as well. Law Tactical folding adapter on it. Feels a lot better too with that on it. Gives the length of pull a lot better. So let's get out to the range and let's go shoot her.
Oh.